Hello and welcome to our live cellular healing episode 13. No, David does not have a cold. He is actually probably sneezing because of saltwater blast into his face because he is on the ocean in what, Palm Beach?
I'm in Palm Beach. Actually, it's the Intercoastal.
Looks like we're on a cruise ship.
I'm on my. It's just when we come down here, it's like we're on a cruise ship for the week. I'm sitting here. This is my railing, and we've got over on the other side is Lake Worth. I'm on Palm Beach Island.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, my co-host David Sarno, along with myself, Warren Phillips, and we have Dr. Pompa on today, hailing from Park City, Utah. Super excited about Cellular Healing episode 13, and we just had a little discussion before we went live on the call today that we're going to walk back through some of the topics that we've discussed, such as amalgam illness, cholesterol and fats, intermittent fasting, and some of the other topics. David's going to help share with that as well, and then tie that back into cellular healing. How does that apply to you? How does that help you get your life back? Dr. Pompa, we just got back from coaching doctors again, and you taught from stage, and we just did that call live from in Ogden, Utah. Man, what's going on the patient side and the client side with health and cellular healing that can really be applied through all these different topics that you teach?
Yeah, well, I really did want to take a walk back. I think, David suggested that. I thought it was a great idea because, we talk about these different topics that we kind of lose focus on. How does this actually apply to cellular healing? Well, all of it does. I mean, this is where the epidemic is. Warren, to answer your question, we have all the massive epidemics today. I mean, from autism affecting 1 in 50, and by 2025, they're estimating 1 in 2 kids on the autism spectrum. Did I just hear myself talking there? And and then when we look at the diabetes and the thyroid and the weight loss resistance and the hormone dysregulation, we talked about all of these things, and really all of it is a cellular problem. So that's it. And more in the discussion, David, you were there. I introduced that subject that we did on one of the past shows, and I don't know what number it was, maybe 9, but I talked about cholesterol sulfate, and now the leading senior scientists at MIT and others are coming out with more and more papers showing that heart disease is in fact a cholesterol deficiency, specifically a cholesterol sulfate deficiency. And then in that lecture, I tied that in to really how it's causing dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, and I just kept laying out diabetes and heart disease. And
so you think about this, then what's going on today is the foods are changing. There's like low fat, low cholesterol, and then all of a sudden we're having a huge increase in dementia, Alzheimer's. All these things are happening. They're decreasing one thing, but then all of a sudden, because they're saying this is healthy for you, right, and yet we're seeing a huge increase on all these other things.
Absolutely. So if you look at all of our topics that we've done, weight loss resistance, all these things, the cholesterol, myth, the saturated fat myth, all of these things apply to cellular healing. And when we look at all the rise in these diseases, if you just look at all of these episodes that we did, you will see lies, myths, and how we got here as a planet, really. I mean, as a country, for sure. And the answer lies within the topics that we discussed. And, the 180-degree lifestyle, is something that is really I'm passionate about because my life has always been that way. It seems like everything that I do is opposite of what we hear from the media. From the fat, to just about everything that I believe, all the way down to every thing we've talked about on this show. So it is a fun topic. When we look at all the myths in weight loss, when we look at all the myths in cholesterol, heart disease, saturated fat, everything. I mean, how often we should eat. When we look at the myths of exercise, I mean, it's always opposite of what we're hearing. And there's a reason for that, no doubt. But if you haven't watched some of those past shows, go back and watch them because it really will, pick you up to speed. But if we had one focus on today's show, it's some of these topics. How do they apply to cellular healing, but also how do they apply to you? Because listen, we're all affected by this. We did that show on GMOs. How does GMO apply to cellular healing? Oh my gosh, that was half of my lecture. To 150 doctors is GMO. A chemical that they're spraying on all the grains that everyone's eating, every conventional grain today, and of course even more so GMO, and then how that affects all these processes in our body. It's creating massive epidemic. I mean, it's huge topics.
So one of the questions that hit me, that I think that many people who aren't in the know and aren't on top of all this and may not have watched all of our shows are asking is, what is true cellular healing? What is true cellular detox? What is it? How does that compare to taking, the medicine for the symptoms that we're showing? I mean, obviously, we know this. We talk about it. It's passionate to us. However, people who are listening to this may not even know what true cellular healing, what it really is.
Yeah, I think that's part of what we joke, on our side about. It's like, cellular healing, what does that mean to anyone? Nothing, right? But what does that mean as far as people's, not getting well, or, people just struggling where they are? Well, it means everything. So one of our passions is to make it more of a household word, or at least understanding. Look, to put it in simple terms, when you start getting sick, your cells start not communicating with one another. So they become very selfish. And what we know is cancer cells, these rogue cells that your body starts isolating off. I mean, these are selfish, nasty cells. Cells start not talking, they start saying the wrong things. So they start communicating bad information. So you have cell to cell bad information. You have brain to cell bad information. And this is all really dictated by what's happening in that DNA. We used to think that the DNA was the brain, and that really controlled everything. Now we know it's not. We know that it's the outer cell membrane that really determines that DNA, and it's communication with going on out here. So it's all about this communication that goes on in our body. When this starts to fail, now cellular function starts to change. David, one of the first things that go wrong in a cell is it starts dropping in energy. And when it starts dropping in energy, now all these bad things start happening, and really, I mean, not to overcomplicate it, but, there's this major gap between what is so exciting happening in the last 5 years in the scientific world, in this massive, gap in treatment, and what doctors are actually doing. And one thing that I know, that when you start understanding these concepts of cellular healing, I think we can close this gap down and bring more power to the people. More power to people of realizing, your doctor, trust me on this. I mean, he'll give you perhaps the right medication to take the symptom away, but it's not healing, is it? It's not true health care. Well, this gap, in lies the answer. I think, one of my goals is always to close down this gap and empower the people with the information. So, I mean, you don't have to understand the biology of a cell to get what we're saying. The reason why you don't feel well is because your cell's not speaking the right things. It's not communicating. It's becoming very selfish. So these cells, there's not that coordination going on, and we have to fix the cell. If you fix the cell, you get well. Honestly, I mean, that's how I got my life back, David. That's what's changed your life in the last, year or so. It got Warren his life back. I mean, that's why we're all very passionate about this topic.
So what I hear you saying, it's like the cells have these communicators, and what happens is when they go haywire, they stop communicating back and forth. All of a sudden, we have the things that we've talked about, the weight loss resistance. We start seeing things like diabetes. We start seeing things like all the pandemic of thyroid challenges that are going on around the world right now. And when you go right back to your R1, removing the source, identifying the source, and then removing the source, that's the first. Is that the first stage then in healing? And
exactly, it's step one, David. And I was hoping you'd bring me into the R's, because when we talk about these, it's kind of very simple when we talk about cells that are not functioning right. Remember the monkeys? It's hear no evil. That's the cell not hearing what's going on, right? See no evil, right? These cells become so selfish, that they start living their own little existence, and that's bad, right? And and then of course when they start speaking bad stuff, now we're in trouble, right? Now, so we got to get rid of these cells. But the 5 R's is really a roadmap that I thought really it was just for practitioners. When God gave me this 5 R's. But it's turned out to be even an understanding that the public can understand. And I've written articles on each R. They're on my website. But R number 1, David, is correct. I mean, if you don't remove the source, then the body never heals. Philosophy that's really chiropractors in particular, I would say, and I think I hope most natural doctors, allopathic doctors, maybe not. But if you remove the interference, the body can do the healing. And that's really the principle of R1. I mean, you could have interference. If you have silver fillings in your mouth, there's no way you're going to get well. And there's a guarantee you're definitely going to get sick. I mean, if you're living in a moldy home, if you have certain infections, I mean, these things have to be removed, and people live their lives with those sources. However, even if you remove yourself from, for example, a moldy house, or take out the fillings, well, you have to get the stuff that's bioaccumulated in your body out. Otherwise, you can take all the vitamins and minerals you want, you're never going to get well. It's that simple. That's R1. And then R2, R3, R4, R5 is kind of, these are all the things that really have just malfunctioned in the cell. And if we don't fix these things, we're never going to have an answer to all of those conditions, David, that you said. Hormone issues. Why? Listen, I love saying this because this is the rage. And every day I get 10 emails about hormones. I get 10 emails from the public. Well, probably more than that from the public, about their hormone problems. In most people's sense, they have something going wrong with their hormones, but what are they doing? They're going to their doctor and they end up on more hormones.
Yeah.
Well, you go to the alternative doctor and they end up on more things that, more bioidentical hormones or things that manipulate hormones. Look, these things can be crutches, make you feel better short term. However, it's not a long-term answer. That's right. You'll never figure out the game. And the analogy, David, I always say, and you have kids, and and some people listening do, you start shouting at your kids. This is giving more hormones, right? We're giving you more hormones. You shout at your kids. Man, they listen, right? And there's a good effect. And we go, boy, that worked. So then we keep doing it, and then we realize we're shouting louder, to get the message going. Eventually they're like this, right? They're the cells, right? The cells that aren't hearing anymore.
They shut down. They shut down. It's a perfect example.
Exactly. And then what happens is, once they shut down, now we're screaming louder with absolutely no effect. And that's the hormone answer. But look, on every cell there's these little receptors, these little ears. And if we can revitalize these, and by the way, we've talked a lot about fat because fat plays an important role there. Now our cells can hear the hormones. Our cells can hear these hormones, get the message in the DNA. Now our cells start speaking the right stuff and functioning correctly. It's not rocket science. Science has really showed what's going on here and what's driving the blunting of these receptors. But nobody's talking about it. I mean, if you go back and listen to these shows, we've been talking about it. This is a massive problem. Hormone resistance driven by toxins. And of course, certain dietary things like bad fats, vegetable oils, and all these things. What Warren's holding up is the endocrine control tower. In the middle of the head, we have the hypothalamus pituitary. The hypothalamus is
here's the head. I'll speak so they can see it here.
The hypothalamus takes in information. It's like your thermostat on the wall, right? In other words, it's going, okay, it's hot, it's cold, and then it tells something else what to do. Well, the hypothalamus then, based on the information it's getting back from the body, tells the pituitary gland what to do. The pituitary gland then releases certain hormones to your thyroid, your adrenals, all the things down below. Warren, if you can hold that up just a little higher.
Yeah, if I talk, it'll show up live on. We have a bad.
Okay. All right. So Warren, Warren knows it well. I mean, let Warren explain that way you can actually see it. But anyway, let me just say one thing before that. Like, for example, amalgam fillings. Guess where most of the mercury goes? Right into the pituitary hypothalamus, which is the control tower for your whole endocrine system. Most toxins end up there. So Warren, go ahead and kind of finish that off there.
Okay, I'll walk through this and I have some bad reflection going on here, but essentially, here we go. Here's the it says hypothalamus. Is it reading hypothalamus to you? It's backwards to me.
Yes, yeah. It's
okay, so it says hypothalamus right here. There's a hypothalamus pituitary. The pituitary is kind of the control tower. The hypothalamus obviously is a hormone producer in your brain. They're the main controllers of all your other endocrine glands, and your other endocrine glands. This endocrine gland right here is the pituitary. So this is kind of the control tower, pituitary hypothalamus, that's located in your brain, and it speaks to all of your endocrine hormones, which is going to make a lot of sense for everybody because your endocrine system is what controls your hormones. A lot of that happens up in, if you go upstream like Dr. Pompa talks about, a lot of doctors are treating all the endocrine problems down here with hormones. And like Dan discussed, it's just like screaming at your kids. They can't hear anything. You're adding T3, you're adding testosterone, you're adding cortisol, all these other things, and it's just not working because the problem is upstream in a hypothalamus pituitary. And then our number one, what Dr. Pompa spoke of, is the toxin. The toxin starts interfering and attaching to the hormones upstream or affecting the hypothalamus pituitary, they can't, like, it'd be like if you're trying to guide airplanes and they couldn't communicate to the control tower at an airport, couldn't communicate to the airplanes, you would have a wreck going on. Well, that's what happens in your body. The toxins shut down the control tower, the pituitary, and then all the airplanes, which is your endocrine system, don't know what's going on. They can't talk to each other. Planes can't communicate, and then you have a wreck, which is a lot of your lives, which you don't know what's wrong. Why are we crashing? Why do I have no energy? Why can't I get pregnant? Why do I have no sex drive? You know, why do I have inflamed prostate? Why do I have losing hair? You know, all these different things. So again, it starts up here in the brain and it's flowing down through to the control tower pituitary. And here's the difference. Endocrine system glands, they're actually, it's all hormone related. It's all hormone controlled. Many of you don't even realize that. In your endocrine system, you have hormones that are being produced by these endocrine glands that have to go back to the pituitary, back up here, talk to all these other hormones. All of these endocrine glands have to talk to one another. They have to know what's going on. If your adrenals are getting weak, your thyroid can make up for it. You know, if your thyroid is getting weak, your adrenals, you know, certain hormones will have to go back up to pituitary, back down, and do the same thing. So this is the control tower, and there's toxins that affect it at this level, at the control tower level in your brain. And then there's toxins that actually can affect at the hormonal level, and like toxins can attach to thyroid stimulating hormone. You can have toxins that actually interfere in the endocrine gland like the thyroid. So, I mean, based on that picture, you can see a lot of the issues that we're having. I'm having some issues, obviously, pronouncing things. But you can see that toxins can affect it all along the way, both at the organ level, the actual thyroid gland, and then interfere with communication along the way. That's why I put these pictures of toxins. Toxins can affect the communication between the thyroid and the pituitary. The thyroid, the hormones, can be affected by the actual toxins themselves, different toxins, ones that we spoke of like mercury. So this, when we say remove the cause, if you're not removing the cause and there's all these toxins in here and you're trying to do the other R's that Dr. Pompa speaks of, if you're not removing the toxin, you're not going to get well. And this is all happening, guys, of what Dr. Pompa talked about at the cellular level. So let's go back down in the hidden cause, we call that. This is cellular inflammation, is the hidden cause. So when you have toxins that come and attach to a cell that's located inside the thyroid gland, man, you have problems. If you have a toxin that comes in and affects the pituitary at the cellular level, you get cellular inflammation, blunting of the hormones, the things that Dr. Pompa talked about, little hormone receptors not speaking to one another, inflammation, good things can't come in, bad things can't go out. You have a sick cell that can hear nothing, do nothing, that's selfish, and obviously causes, you know, at some level, this cellular inflammation can cause what leads to cancer. And then, let's pull up Dr. Pompa's 5 R's of cellular healing. R number 1, that's why it's number 1, remove the source, remove those toxins that are causing that cellular inflammation, that are causing the miscommunication at the hormone level. So Dr. Pompa, why don't you talk a little bit about your 5 R's, remove the source. Number 2, regenerating the cell membrane. This is all happening at the cellular level, guys. Restoring cellular energy, reducing the inflammation and oxidative stress, which we kind of saw in that cell. And then R5, reestablishing methylation. God, this is the roadmap to cellular healing, to getting your life back. And I just spoke to someone the other day to wrap this all up. They're like, Warren, why do you do what you do? Well, there's a lot of people suffering out there that don't understand that their problems are happening at the cellular level. They're not being told when they go to the doctor that they need to remove the source. For example, diabetes. According to an Oxford study, I just read it was 92%. They did a large study. It was hundreds of patients. And they proved with dietary change alone, 92%, was between 91 and 93, but I think it was 92% of all diabetes is reversible, type 2 diabetes. So, and they did it in a study. They did put everyone on an anti-inflammatory diet, likely, probably not nearly as good as the cellular healing diet, and 92% is reversible. So when you go to your doctor, the source of the problem was too much sugar. That's one of the remove the source problems. You're eating too much sugar, grains, and sugar, and inflammation at the cellular level. They just changed diet, 92%, without even following the other R's. they reverse 92% of diabetes. When you go to your doctor, he does not say, oh, by the way, I just read a study out of the New England Journal of Medicine. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember the study, Dan, but I can't remember. I just saw it on the, we spoke about it at another event. But they don't go to you and say, oh, by the way, if you do this diet, there's 92% chance that you will never have to have diabetes again. No. When you go to your doctor, he says, oh my gosh, you're starting to get elevated blood glucose. We need to put you on a drug. You see the difference? Remove the source, guys. That's why this works. That's why this system, and that's why we're passionate, because a lot of people don't know the truth. Their doctors aren't telling them. That's not their job. If you want to learn about removing the cause and seeing your body heal itself, don't go to your medical doctor 99% of the time. Not to say that there's not some ones out there that want to do that, but they're not trained in that. We're training you on the truth on how to let your bodies heal. That's a system that's broken. This is a system that works.
You know, it's kind of funny you bring this up, and you talk about removing the source, number one, and how that plays such a big factor. Dr. Sarah in our program, she was taking huge steps backwards, and she found out that she had a car that was full of mold. And literally, she went out and got a new car, and Dr. Papa, how quickly did she start feeling better? I mean, obviously, she's going now through other cellular detox programs back on, go back to clearing out the cellular level. But, I mean, what was it, almost instantly she felt the difference?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the power of, really just getting to the source. When we look at all the conditions today, I think one of the dangers is that we just don't think it's going to affect us, right? I mean, we have, so many people that just, you get a certain amount of symptoms after a while, and it becomes normal to you, or I should say this, at least a lot of these things like the waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to get back to sleep, right? Only able to sleep 6 hours, not getting to sleep, just fatigue and, needing stimulants all day, it's common. But just because it's common, it doesn't mean it's normal. So it's like we're almost dumbed down, especially in this country, to what is in fact normal and vibrant health. Very few people have it, David. And if I would have talked to you a couple years ago, you'd have thought you had it. Am I right?
I actually thought I did.
See,
I thought I was doing things the right way, and then all of a sudden I was sitting in the back of your room, and it's just like, oh my. I mean, how I got there is God-given, and I was sitting there in the back of the room, and I was just like, I think I was asking just as many questions as the doctors were.
Yeah, but again, if you just, oh, I'm healthy, and you were dying, man. I mean, you could have had a heart attack. And,
God forbid, but yeah.
Someone like myself would have been like, yeah, it makes sense to me, and everyone else in your family and would have been just shocked, right?
I mean, at the time I was a vegetarian, and I was eating lots of grain, lots of bread, lots of pasta, and I thought I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's America right there. That's America.
I just spoke to one of our new employees. She's probably watching right now. Hello, Meredith. And she just told me about a story of a close friend. She interned at the Cushing's Institute. For several years. She loves the mission. She's doing the fast. She's ordered another Beyond Organic pack and doing another fast. She's doing the bone broth fast. She's getting her bones. I mean, she is on fire for this information. She came from that environment, the Cushing Institute, and they've done a lot of good for people, for certain people, but their diet is almost like a vegan diet, but heavy grains. No meats, some fish, but heavy grains. Rice, different ancient grains, very, very rice and grain heavy. And one of her friends had diabetes, and this is the diet. He thought he was going to the Cushing's Institute to get well. Meanwhile, he fell into a diabetic coma at one point during his time there. And how can you, this is what's crazy to me, even in the natural health field, we buy into a philosophy or maybe even a religion that's based on, not on science, but based on mainly, I mean, they have some good stuff, fermenting, there's some great stuff there, don't get me wrong. Some beautiful information that's been around for a long time. However, when you're dealing with a disease, in a disease process, you can't ignore a philosophy like being vegan or being a meatitarian or whatever it may be when it's going to kill you. You know, you have to know the answers. And so they were literally shoving grains into a diabetic, spiking his glucose and insulin and killing him and throw him into a coma. They never thought about the consequences of that, what that was doing to his body. And it's maddening. So even in a natural health field, you'll go see someone and they'll put you on, you know, some canned program that they bought, like Ideal Life or Isogenics, a direct sales product that has sugar in it, and say this is going to cure your disease. It may make a few people feel better. Another one, Ideal Protein, which has toxic things in it, and soy protein, and different in sugars and high fructose corn syrup or whatever it may be, and you wind up making people sicker. So when you're doing something, another one of our goals is not even giving people an option from the medical doctor side, you know, to get your life back, but it's also to show you the truth on the alternative side, that if you want to get your life back, you have to follow the 5 R's. You have to do this system of cellular healing, and you can't just grab on to one thing, like this diet or that diet. You have to follow the system and do what's right and what's science-based. And Dan, that's what I love about you. And I struggled with you at times, like, well, Dan, you know, not everyone's going to do that. Here's a canned program that everyone can do. And he's like, no, this is what God's given me. These are the 5 R's. This is for everyone as well. We need to make this a household name, not dumb it down, not make it simple, not make it isogenics. And
one of the things that I struggle with is that, I mean, even doctors want a canned program. They want, oh, just the protocol for this, you know. And, you know, my goal is always to teach a doctor how to think, you know. And if we can teach them how to think around and understand cellular healing, man, I know that we're gonna change the world, at least in this aspect of it, you know. I want to finish with one thing here, just because I don't know, it kind of led in that direction. And this is something that I taught on this past weekend. And I think it really talks a lot about what we've talked about. You know, Warren brought up diabetes and just saying, get rid of sugar. But it's really not that simple, because most people would say, if I ask 100 people here, you know, do you eat sugar, a lot of sugar, the answer would absolutely be no. But when we look at the standard American diet, you know, one of the things that's driving inflammation, premature aging, is elevated glucose. That's blood sugar. Now, all of those people, if we, you know, sampled 100 people, what's that?
It's a helicopter. I'll mute me.
98 out of, you know, that 100 would have ups and downs in their glucose and insulin, aging prematurely. Even though their blood tests, when they do go to their doctor, their glucose is normal, but the problem is they're like this, right? All right, which causes, you know, it causes cravings, it causes, like, gosh, I need to eat feeling, and it causes, obviously, weight gain. And the skinny people, you end up with fatty liver. So, you know, this is what's happening. You know, this is a diet that people in America, you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think, but...
No, we can see it.
Okay. Anyways, people in America, they think that they're eating a low carbohydrate or no sugar. It's baloney. The low carbohydrate diets promoted by our government are actually still, in fact, high carbohydrates. So most of you watching this, even those who eat healthy, this is still applying to you. Because if you're eating carbohydrate intakes around 150 to 200, which is what our government calls a low carbohydrate diet, this is actually still happening. So you get a rise in triglycerides. Okay, this is a big problem, because once you get a rise in triglycerides, you know, not only do you have the potential to get fat, but you have the potential to get a fatty liver. We have a drop in HDL, okay, which most people know is the good cholesterol, which I hate that, because there's no bad cholesterol. Well, actually, you get a drop in the bad cholesterol, the LDL. Stop right there. So do you see why people used to say, well, this higher carbohydrate diet is what you want? Low fat, high carb, because we get a drop in the bad cholesterol. Well, we drop in the HDL, which they simply don't talk about, but they focus right here, okay, on the LDL, because it has such a bad rap. Well, the fact is the more people have heart attacks with low LDL, higher mortality, higher death rate with low LDL. I know that that's, you know, we talked about this in the past show, so please go back and watch it, but that's the truth. But something else, here's what really matters with cholesterol, is you have, I can't see that for some reason, it's all blown out. Can you see that?
Particles.
So particles, right. So you have an elevation in the number of particles in the small particles. I'm not going to reteach that, but go watch a show on it. This is what matters with that. The more particles of LDL you have, the more risk at heart attack, despite how low it is. The more of the small particles you have, despite how low it is, that's really puts you at risk for multiple things, not just heart disease, but all kinds of other health problems, even hormone problems, okay? So this is what happens. Now let's show you what a true low carbohydrate diet looks like. And this is what happens when we do the cellular healing diet and the advanced cellular healing diet with our patients. You get a drop in triglycerides, you get a rise in HDL. LDL goes up, which, by the way, is the one that you need to make hormones with. So again, this has been the criticism of low carbohydrate diets, is it raises HDL. You're darn right it does, because there's a lower mortality. There's better hormone function. But let's look at the killer here. The real thing is the cholesterol particles and the size of the particles plummet. So the LDL particles and the size go down. This is the way humans are meant to function. This is the way most of you even watching this show are functioning. We love to do a test called an NMR test that looks at particle number and size. And people with very low cholesterol, I just had one. Warren, her cholesterol was 155. I had 2 years of blood tests, low cholesterol. She had low brain function. She had major toxic issues, hormone issues, low cellular energy. Cholesterol 155, set up for the death zone, no doubt about it. Eating the standard American low fat, low, just doing everything right as far as diet goes. Low fat, I would say should be considered a moderate to high carbohydrate diet driving that condition. Her genetics, she needs to lower that carbohydrate intake, increase her fats, and watch her numbers all change. Her life's going to change. But that's the key for most people. When we talk about your genetics, determine how much fat you need, determine how many proteins, how many, and it's like that's, we train our doctors on that, and it's really important. But, this is an epidemic of just the wrong message driving this problem. And it's all based on LDL levels, and it's completely half-assed backwards.
It's maddening, you always get me fired up, man. I sit here and, I've heard this information, before from you, but it still boggles my mind. It's like, how do people that supposedly care about the world allow this to happen? I know it's money driven, and I get the business side of it, the government side of it, but it's still, even then I can't wrap my head around it, because it's literally killing people. People, are designed by God to live a certain way, and their hormones and things adapt so that you can live at a high level and have a high level of brain function. I see it every day, and it's so sad, to see people not functioning the way God designed their body to be, not to be the parent they're supposed to be, not to be the grandma they're supposed to be, not having that energy and vitality that we speak of. That's absolutely normal. It's normal to be healthy. Now it's abnormal to be healthy, at a certain age. Oh, man, how is that even possible that you're healthy? You're getting older. You should be sick. That's the accepted paradigm. We've been dumbed down.
And we've been dumbed down. See, when a major premise of a philosophy is wrong, David, you're a philosophy guy. What happens to everything underneath it?
Well, when
the major premise is wrong, what happens underneath it?
Well, when the major premise is wrong, everything is wrong, because everything's built upon that foundation.
Here's the major premise that we've been dealing with. The major premise is that saturated fats and cholesterol are bad for you. It was started in 1909, I believe, to 1913. The 1954 were Alan Keyes, his junk science. Everything came out of a major premise to where LDL is bad. So LDL we thought was the bad cholesterol, and all these false major premises now are dictating a lifestyle of low fat, a diet that really is causing disease in humans. We're ignoring the fact that we have this massive toxic, overload, and we wonder how we got here. The major premise is wrong. We need to reverse our major premise to this right here.
Well, it's like everything is built upon the premise that the world is flat.
Well, it's true, yeah. But it's not.
And everything that we're being taught is based upon that original premise that the world is flat, in the sense of all the foods that we're talking about and how we do it.
If we just end on this note and we switch our major premise, the way that we live our lifestyles. Look, God designed our bodies in such an amazing way that they can heal themselves, right? Doctors don't heal. Our bodies have the ability to heal. If all we do is remove the interference, give the body what it needs. It's actually way easy. That's the easy part. Remove the interference, our bodies will heal. If we live our lives from that premise, that makes us live our lives from cause and not effect. We are trained from the time we are kids to live our lives in effect. 97% of Americans do that. We wait till we have a symptom, we take a pill. Have a headache, take a pill. Have this, take this. You're living your life in effect. I'm broke, let me get money, pay this, pay that. Everything that we operate is effect. Instead of living our lives up here to cause, you don't ever wait till you get sick. You know, the body heals itself, but we have to remove these things in our life that are driving that. High carbohydrate diets, absolutely, get rid of it. Causes diet. Humans aren't meant to eat that way. You know, we can go all through it. The amount of toxins that you're exposed to daily, amalgam fillings, these things, remove them. The body will heal itself. You know, so remove the cause, live your life from cause, not effect. You know, no doubt your life will change. Be a 3%er. That's the way 3%. 3% of the people who are successful in everything, they live from cause in not only their health, but in everything in their life. 97%ers, people that are just sheeple. They're moving over the cliff. They're following the herd, so to speak. I always teach my children, never follow the herd. If the herd's going right, make a left, or vice versa. So, you know, those are the 3%ers. You want to be the one that lives your life from cause, you know, move away from the herd, you know, 180-degree lifestyle. No doubt that's what you have to live.
That being said, Dan, right now, if you're watching this or you're watching it, you know, later on a replay, share cellularhealing.tv with your friends. Take action. This is the truth. I 100% guarantee that the stuff we're sharing with you is backed up by science. It's the real deal. It's not some canned program. It's not some, you know, scheme or pyramid, you know, opportunity. This is the truth. And Dan, of all the people I know, he's a truth seeker, one of the top doctors in the country. I would honestly say he's the top 5 in the country that I've met that get people well, and I've met them all. And I'm just coming right from my heart. He's incredible. He sees patients all over the country.
Maybe we should call this show, Cellular Healing TV, Live the 180-Degree Lifestyle. Because isn't that every topic we've talked about, it's 180 degrees opposite of the way the world is moving. You know, it's like, you know, they move right, we're moving left. It's the 180-degree lifestyle. You know, David, you know, and Warren, both of you, the marketing guys, people can relate to that.
That's a good book title. The 180-degree lifestyle.
Buy all the things. I said, buy all those things. You know, because, I mean, it's like that is it, man. You want to live a good life, live a 180-degree life, live a 180-degree lifestyle. My wife and I do, you guys do, your wives do. That's what we do. You know, we're 3%ers, but we're living a 180-degree lifestyle. Join us.
Amen. Well, and on that, Dr. Pompa, thank you so much for your passion, your heart, and all the sacrifice you make seeing patients every day. I talked to you yesterday, back to back to back, all day till 8 o'clock your time. We know the time and effort you put in and the sacrifice you put in. Looking forward to seeing you soon. I'm here in Pittsburgh. You and David, love you guys. Appreciate your time.
Man, see you next week.
Likewise. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Cellularhealing.tv. Share it. Bye-bye.